topic of scale came up because we were showed this small have your own planetarium in your room compared to the planetarium at Galaxy City. So like comparing that on like an individual level and then like a community level. And then if you look at Kidsania, if you look at it like quite small picture, you've got kids enjoying themselves, like making a pizza practically. They are enjoying themselves, they're smiling. And then you look outside of that with the parents taking the pictures of them. It's like ultimate dress up for your child. They're dressed as a police person, take pictures. And then if you
crying
kind
when
of
kids get married.
Yeah. Best day of my life. And then if you like zoom out, you see all the brands, and then you zoom even more out and realise it's a franchise and that these are all over the world. And then compare that with Meineck, where they've got like a global feel. So they wanted this sphere where you can see the whole of the earth, and they've got like quite a emphasis on global warming, and they have different shows, and it's all about kind of the ambition is like much more long term. And we can see that with Galaxy City. The girl that kind of runs most of the sessions, she was thinking long term. She wasn't really interested, like we asked her about like short term things, but she was interested in the long term. So the government actually paid for Galaxy City because there was like quite high crime rate. So that was like one of the main things that they got out was that there was a lower crime rate. Yeah, so I think it's like the scale of ambition. And I think it's quite sad that Kidsania has so much money, but their ambitions are really small. Like they're not representing the whole world, they're representing like a commercial town. There's no nature, there's no like do your own job, that's just like not part of it. So
there was a really nice bit of Galaxy City at the end as well. She was almost begging us to come back, to the point where she was saying like, it's amazing you guys are here, you must come back and partner with us, you've got to come back, like tell everybody, come here, help us to do stuff. Almost to the point where we're going, all right, we'll come back. It was almost awkward, but it was lovely that she was just so, almost just desperate to have that the whole world come to her.
She should go to Kidsania.
Yeah.
Another theme that came up was the motivation. What were these places trying to do? What was their main objective? And especially in the context of children, what were they trying to achieve? So this is one of the brochures that we got from Galaxy City, and it describes what Rizal was talking about with the 4 kind of elements that are trying to develop in children. On the right, it's arts and culture, the spiritual kind of element, physical element. This is, what is this one?
Creativity.
Creative
knowledge.
Creativity and making, and it like facts, information, kind of knowledge, which is the planetarium. Yeah. So there are these 4 kind of streams, and they had this really holistic approach. And then in contrast to that was do we have a slide for Kidsania on this one, or is it just, oh no, just the one. So in contrast to that was the motivation, objective of Kidsania and Sega. Sega was very shamelessly transparent about what their main motivation was to sell products to children, and it was the same with Kidsania. It was training them in financial literacy and the importance of earning your money and earning money and then spending it, and trying to tailor this kind of approach to a brand-based process, which was kind of interesting. The part I thought was interesting about this as well was the way it was reflected in the design of the space. So the single versus multi-dimensionality of the space itself. So Kidsania was, you went in there, you learned a task, that was kind of the one element of what kids were doing. Whereas, for example, the hamster, this is the engagement with the object. Whereas Galaxy City and Meineck, it was much more complex with their engagement with the space. It was more about them directing their own experience, and this space was facilitating that on a social and a physical sensory level. So that was much more complicated and much more interesting for the children themselves. Even trying to, I thought it was interesting them all describing the different places, how it was so much more difficult to describe Galaxy City than talk about Kidsania or Sega. It's like, there was so much more going on. So, yeah.
It kind of like that sort of financial thing leads quite neatly, I think, into the ethics.
Yeah. So we go through these 4 places, and then we saw that in Kidsania, for example, there's Insania's approach by the owner of Kidzania towards the consumer society, that they want to introduce instantly for children to replicate what we are doing, but also showing in to us, to me personally, it's an ethical way introducing the brands of some commercial companies, which is it is unethical for some children who doesn't have the filters to which one is ethical and unethical. And we pose the questions to Kidzania whether they have some criteria for some companies can enter to this area, and they said that it's first come first service. So there's no such a filter actually to which company is good and which is not, and there's no such advice for them. As in comparisons to the other, and for example in Sega, this is much encouraging much more into hobbies or personal hobbies rather than into relationship. So you have your own games and playing yourself, being individual and being happy because of the gadget. The more gadget you have, the more toys you have, you are the winner. Like that's kind of like messaging that they want to give to the parents. And then the other one, do you have another picture?
I think there is.
Okay, so the Galaxy in the other way, they're conveying the message of the relationships and getting contact with different people, and then having that emotional feelings as being together, and there's no such value of in terms of how much you need to pay to be happy, for example. Just go there, it's free for you to just roaming around. So that kind of feelings that I got, and this is like in terms of the moral philosophy. I think the first one, Sega and Kidzania, is much more engaging into commercializing children's, and the last one, Galaxy and what do you call that? Miraikan, it's much more in towards the encouraging for creativities, inspirations, and engaging more into human relationship.
As we're talking about human relationship, you want to talk about gender?
Okay, right. The last critical theme that we came up was gender. So in Kidzania and in Sega, it was very apparent on what is the difference between a girl and a boy, because in Kidzania, in the salon, almost everyone was a girl doing the makeup and stuff, and also in the theater, getting married, it has to be a girl and a boy. And so we were thinking, what if I'm a boy and I want to get married with another boy? But then we did not ask.
Would that even come into the kid's mind though, at that level?
It was very
asexual at that age, aren't they? So it doesn't matter.
Right. It was very interesting
No.
because
Did they say to them you can't marry a boy and a boy?
No, but they're like from 4 till teenage years.
They say it's up to 18, 16.
Yeah.
But they said
do they
the
specifically say you can't marry a boy and a girl?
Well, we did
Or did
ask.
it just-
we didn't
They didn't
ask.
ask.
However, they gave a disclaimer in the beginning that they do not discriminate age and gender in role playing. However, we felt that it would be uncomfortable if we ask them about it. But then, well, however,
Is it just the case of
Yeah.
the boys don't want to dress up, the boys don't want
Well,
to marry
that's
another
the
boy?
issue of gender
there's
that
like
got brought up
stereotype.
that we talked
Yeah.
about. Maybe
It's a
we'll,
stereotyping because it's not just
Yeah.
the kid's choice.
sure.
Yeah, it's the kid's choice, but if a kid wants to choose something and they can't do it,
It just to be brought up as an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one
a bit of an
example of
issue.
like of how directly led it is and how
We've got other
play
examples that are much
is sort
more
of worked out by
clear.
I was
adults.
just wondering if there was
Sure.
a boy who wanted to do that. Could they say,
Well,
no?
yeah, maybe not in this, not in Tanzania, but when I was a kid, I wanted to get married with a boy. So, but then that was the very first thing that came into my mind in the wedding theater. But then we kind of deliberated it, and then Chloe and I were said, like, maybe let's just try not asking it. Anyhow, moving forward was that in Sega, it was more apparent because they explained that the girls are more they communicate better than the boys, and so the toys for girls should be more it should be modeled in a way that it can make girls communicate better. So, and then for the boys, we're more let's say they are mechanical, and they kind of don't really think on a higher degree, so they would be given toys that just crash and just move, and that's it. And so we kind of felt that anyhow. So we asked what is the percentage of the girls and the boys, the market share of the girls and the boys, and the girl answered that 95% are girls, and why would boys? It gave us that tone that
it was just a number she pulled out of her head as well, like it wasn't considered.
Yeah.
So it was just, this was targeting girls, and that was
yes. So yeah, we were amazed how she responded in that way. In contrast, is that in Kidzania, in Meineck and in Galaxy City, girls and boys can do just about anything they want, right? So they are given the equal opportunity to, let's say, girls can climb as high as the boys can, all right? And then on the other hand, in playing with the net, they can all mix all together and just be creative on what they can do. And so, having said that, it is very interesting to note that just like teammate mentioned, that we adults design the public spaces. However, it's actually the children engage them differently, and so we feel that this is one way on how we impose things on children, but then children are able to break away. So
yeah, I think that was generally like the whole feeling of the whole safari was this like freedom resolve, like how things are pre-resolved or not, sort of fantasy versus reality, and standardization versus innovation, this kind of idea, and to what extent, you know, the attitude to play is, you know, this is from Kidzania, is it a declaration of independence for a better tomorrow, I think it says in there, and whether that better tomorrow is for the child that engages with that particular play right now, or is it the play is for a better, you know, a more stimulating and connected and sort of beautiful space for everyone right now. I think that kind of duality is really, really what came out of this trip. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.